So let's get started today. So very quickly, with a show of hands, how many of you are product managers? Okay, quite a few. How many of you are designers? Okay, we've got designers in the house. Engineers? Okay. Any aspiring product managers? Okay. Any other title that I missed? Marketing. Nice. Sales? Okay. We've got a healthy combination. So let's get started. So our topic for today is how can we build products that delight users. Right? Each of us aspire to build products and build experiences that are going to delight the users. And I'm going to share some of my experiences in building such products. We as product builders want to design products that our users want to use, not because they have to, because that they want to and are passionate about it. So you should know a little bit about me. I've had a range of experience building enterprise-focused and consumer-focused products at large companies and startups. And at every organization that I've worked on so far, I've looked for two things. I've looked for opportunity to solve hard problems and build revolutionary products. So I started my career working in Microsoft, and I was working on building on solutions that supported devices for Windows. And the solutions that I built was being used by 1 billion plus customers worldwide. And then I worked at Coverity, where I helped build static analysis tools, which helps find quality and security vulnerabilities in your source code. One of my proudest moments while working at Coverity was to see NASA use the product that I built to make sure the Curiosity rover landed correctly on Mars. And then I worked at Circle CI, where I helped build the modern CI/CD platform that is used by 25,000 engineering organizations worldwide, and it powers more than 10 million code builds every month. And then currently, I'm there at Sysdig, where I'm helping build cloud-native monitoring and security solutions for containers. And for people who are not familiar with this space, think of it as Sysdig for your cloud applications. And then in my spare time, I do invest in startup companies, and I act as advisor to them, and I like coaching young product leaders. What's the first thing that you want to do? For the most part, most problems in this world have a solution. They might not be the most efficient or delightful, but for the most part, the solutions do exist. So your goal is to be passionate about a problem and try to find a solution that actually solves real problems. No one cares about products that doesn't really solve real problems. So how can you go about finding if a problem is worth solving? And to do that, you also need to understand the compromises that the user is willing to make, and also understand the social, functional, and the economic dimensions of that. So let's look at how can we go about figuring out the problem that's worth solving. So even though many solutions exist, how do we go about delighting the user? When was the last time any one of you had to take a yellow cab? Show of hands. Okay, that's encouraging. No one. So I vividly remember the last time I had to take a yellow cab in New York City, and I was getting late for my meeting, and I was waiting on the side of the road when it was pouring, and 5 to 10 of these yellow cabs went by empty, but they didn't stop for me. And then finally, I managed to get a yellow cab. And there was a lot of anxiety built in even after sitting into the yellow cab going from point A to point B. I wasn't really sure how long is it going to take me to get to my destination. I wasn't sure if the driver takes credit card because I didn't have any cash in me. And then I wasn't even sure if the driver's taking the most optimal route or he's taking me for a ride. Right? So there was a lot of anxiety built in. Even though solution really existed, it wasn't the most efficient or a delightful experience. Now let's switch gears and think about Uber, right? So Uber has taken an existing solution, made it more efficient, and taken a lot of pains to make it delightful for the user. Now, when I book a ride through Uber, I know how many cars are available in my area, how long will the driver take to get to my place, what route is the driver going to take, so how long is it going to take me to my destination. The payment part is taken covered by credit cards. And if I don't like the experience, I can actually leave feedback that helps improve the service over time. So even though a solution really existed, what Uber has done is try to make it more efficient and delightful for the user. Right? So you always want to find the problem where you can make the solution more efficient and the experience more delightful for the user. Let's look at a very different example. So you want to be really sure that it is a problem. So on the right, well, on the left, what you see is a salt shaker. For the most part, I don't really have that many problems with a salt shaker, right? I mean, I use a salt shaker, at times it gets clogged, so I can unscrew it, clean it up, and again, use it. But the product on the right that you see is something that you can put on your dining table. It does a lot of things. It actually can play music, and it has mood lights, which is the good part. But it does one important thing. It's actually an internet connected salt dispenser. So it comes with an iPhone app that I can actually shake to put salt in my food. I'm not sure about you, but for the most part, I don't see a need for have an IoT connected salt dispenser in my lifetime. And that actually sells for 99 bucks. So you really want to make sure if it's truly a problem that the user faces, right? You don't want to build a product and bolt on the user to it. So these are the two things that you want to focus on to figure out, is it truly a problem? So now that you figured out if it's a problem, what do you do next? You want to understand the user and their needs, right? So again, there can be a lot of users for your product, but again, you want to make sure identify the user that you want to go after first and truly understand their needs. So early on, again, you want to be really focused because you cannot make everyone happy early on, right? So, and you've seen that at Facebook, when they started, they actually focused on the students. They focused on students with .edu accounts. They nailed the solution for the students before they went for the larger market. So while you're actually building your product, you want to find a narrow set of users and really hone in to the use cases and build a product that's really customized for them. You want them to be passionate about your product such that they would brag about your product to their acquaintances, and through the spread of mouth, you would actually have more viral adoption for your product. Now that you have, so early on you want to focus on these power users for your product, but it's also very crucial to actually focus on the marginal user to actually gain product adoption, right? So early on, try to focus on a narrow set of users, refine your product, really perfect for the use cases, but then as you're looking at expanding the market for your product and looking for growth, you want to focus on both the power user and the marginal user, and again solve the use cases. So be very focused early on. And then what you want to do is you want to observe and learn. So how many of you have heard about ethnographic study? Okay, few of you have. So ethnographic study actually focuses on observing what the user is trying to do and look at the problems that the user is trying to have, right? And a lot of times these two are very different. What the user says that the problems are is very different than what the problems the user is actually facing. So ethnographic research is again a very fine technique of again figuring out what are these pain points that the user actually has, and building solutions for these pain points creates an aha moment, which actually helps delight the users. So again, so I want to drill more into this deeper by actually looking into an example, right? So Oral-B, the maker of toothbrush, they were very pretty successful building adult toothbrushes. Then the executive of the company decided they wanted to build a toothbrush for kids. The most logical solution that a lot of people had is, let's shrink the adult toothbrush in size and make it adaptable for kids. But the designers at the company had a request. They actually wanted to observe kids brushing their teeth. They wanted to go into people's house, go into the bathroom, and observe kids brush their teeth. The executives at the company found the request to be fairly odd. Again, in their mind, they expected, again, everyone knows how to brush their teeth, so what unique insight are you going to get? But the designers did exactly that. They actually went and looked and observed how the kids are actually brushing their teeth. They came up with a very unique insight. So the adults have a lot of dexterity in their hands and the fingers, so they're able to actually manipulate how the toothbrush operates. But if you observe kids, they actually hold the toothbrushes with their fist. So they don't really have that level of dexterity, right? So if you were to shrink the adult size toothbrush smaller in size, the kid is going to fumble because they don't really have the level of dexterity. So now that they have this unique insight, they actually came up with a brilliant solution. What they did was, for kids' toothbrushes, they actually added a gripper. So if you look at any of the kids' toothbrushes, they have some sort of a squishy gripper that makes it a lot more easier for kids to really hold it. So next time if you are in the market and if you look at kids' toothbrushes, see if they have a squishy gripper or not. So again, so this was very crucial in figuring out a solution that created the aha moment and was able to actually delight the users. So now, so you really want to hone in on the problem, you want to identify your users, and you want to observe and learn so that you can find the moments that you can design. So now that you've identified the problem and you know whom you're building it for, how do you go about actually solving it? Right? So what you want to do is you want to have a long-term vision and you want to break it down into smaller achievable tasks and walk backwards from it. Right? So someone long time ago had a vision to get to the moon, but they didn't really do that in a single day. They created the vision, broke it down into smaller chunks of tasks, and walked backwards. So what do you want to do, right? So one of the techniques that I generally use is try to think big. When I am trying to find a solution to a problem, I don't want to think about any constraints. If the problem is to go from point A to point B, all possible options are valid. A bike, a car, an aeroplane, or even a jetpack. Right? So all possible solutions are valid, and I want to think big about what all can I do to solve the problem. Then the next step is I actually want to put in my constraints and think with what is the most efficient solution that I can build that actually going to delight the users with least amount of resources. So it's very crucial to have the earlier thinking about without any constraints, then put in the constraints, and then think through the most efficient solutions. One thing that I really want you to focus on is how can you think about goals and not tasks, right? A user is using your product to actually achieve a goal. So don't think about specific tasks, but think about the goals that the user is trying to achieve. And by thinking in this methodology, you'll actually be able to create seamless workflows or seamless experiences, right? So all the different parts of the application will tie together into a very seamless experience. And then one of the things that has really worked for me is to actually write a press release for your product or for your feature that you're working on, right? It might take some amount of time to actually come up with a press release, but it enforces a structured thinking and makes you think about all the corner use cases. And then it's a litmus test that if you cannot come up with a convincing press release, maybe the solution that you're building is not good enough in the first place. So having done this early on is very crucial. And then again, what I wanted to, so a lot of us have heard about minimal viable products, right? Again, it's been a buzzword, and again, that's great. But to delight users, what I want you to focus on is think big, start small, think about minimal viable experiences, right? You want to build an experience that's end-to-end, and that helps you validate your problem, right? So over here on the left that you see is Buffer. Buffer is an app, it's a social media management platform. Again, it supports a range of different social media from Twitter to Facebook, but it didn't really start that way. Early on, the founder had the idea that they wanted to focus on a specific use case, which was to schedule tweets on Twitter. To validate whether there was a demand for this use case, what the founder actually did was to create a web page and put in the use case over there and see how many people are visiting this web page or registering to actually use the product. After a few weeks, the founder actually had enough people register to validate that there was a real need for the specific use case. So he went, after validating, for the next few weeks, he went and built the product. So again, so you basically want to validate early on whether there's enough use case for your product or not. So ideally, even for the salt shaker, you would want to actually validate, create a web page, try to see if there's enough use case or not. Right? So, and after the founder built the product, within the next few weeks, he actually had hundreds of users, and within the next few months, he had hundreds and thousands of users. So you want to really focus on, again, creating a minimal viable experience. That's what you want to focus on. Again, an experience that actually helps delight the use cases. And even though it supports many platforms now, they started off with a single platform, able to schedule tweets on Twitter for a limited set of users. Right? So you want to find a unique use case, you want to find a smaller set to define your product, and then go and expand. Next I have is how do you say no, right? Everyone has an idea for a feature, for a functionality. Your dog walker, your nanny, everyone would suggest some sort of an idea depending on again how popular a product is. So you want to really listen to the use cases that they have, listen to the feature functionality, the requests that they have. You want to discover if it's truly a use case that you want to support at this stage of your product, right? You have a vision, you want to be laser focused on that vision, and if any of these new feature requests align with that vision, yes, consider that. But if not, you want to be really strict and you will want to learn how to say no. And a common use case is how do you decide when to ship, right? Do I wait for the feature functionality to be 100% done and then I ship, or can I ship when it's 80% done and it's actually delivering customer value? So one of the things that I like to do is again the wait, basically once even if the feature is 80% done and it's satisfying a specific set of customers, you can actually use a feature flag to actually turn that feature on for that use case customer base and not wait for the rest of the functionality to be complete. Again, over here, it's very crucial that you don't really ship a product that's half broken, right? You want to ship something that's a working experience, something that delights the users. Again, but you don't want to wait till the time it satisfies 100% of the customers. You can actually ship something that satisfies 80% of your customer use cases. You're actually unlocking customer value. You're getting feedback. Maybe no one actually wants that product in the first place, right? So you want to keep on shipping and not wait 100%. And you want to learn how to say no. So far I've talked about how do you identify the problem, how do you identify the user and the use cases, and then how do you go about building the product. But what I'm going to talk about next is the most important thing that is crucial in delighting the user, and that is how do you build frictionless products, right? How do you, friction it refers to any issues or any of the problems that the user will encounter while using your product, right? So we'll go over a few of the examples, but usually there are two main types of friction. There's interaction friction and there's cognitive friction. So let's look at interaction friction first. Interaction friction refers to the friction that the user encounters while using your product, the UI, the UX of your product. So recently I needed to get auto insurance quote, right? So I landed on the auto insurance website. I had to enter a lot of different information, starting off in my personal details, my name, my age, and my address. And then I needed to add all my vehicle details, right? So my make, model, usage, my mileage history. And then they requested a lot more information, starting from my social security number to my marital status. And while entering all of the information, if I forgot to save the application, it would actually time out. So I had to start again. So there was a lot of friction that was built in, right? As a user, again, I had to actually spend half an hour filling in this form. Again, it frustrated me quite a lot. So even though I got a fairly good rate, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go with the company or not. So as anyone would do, I actually looked for a different provider. And then I came across Root. What Root does is, again, it's very evident that the product managers and the designers at the company have gone through and put in a lot of effort understanding where all the friction points are and how can we actually eliminate the friction to delight the users. Right, so what they've done is they have an iPhone and an Android app. I can scan my driver's license and they auto-populate all the needed information from the driver's license. So again, so they're doing most of the work for me, and what they need me to do is actually go for a test ride, and the app on the phone is detecting my driving pattern using accelerometer and some of these other sensors. So using just these two pieces of information, Root was able to provide me with the insurance quote. And one of the other frustrating experiences that Root solved it for me was it actually went ahead and canceled my previous auto insurance policy for me. So again, they've actually gone through a complete end-to-end experience, figured out all the sources of friction, tried to make the process as efficient as possible, and thought about delighting the user at the same time. So you really want to focus on, again, which are the main friction points within the application that you're working on, the products that you're working on, and how can you eliminate these friction points. Again, the ethnographic research that I talked about earlier is a good use case. Again, when you observe how people are using your application or your product, you'll notice the sources of friction as they go along.